The average woman will waste 4 years of her life in dead-end relationships before finding a compatible partner. For Sigma females, that number doubles. Why? Because what makes you exceptional, your independence, your focus, your refusal to play social games, makes you a target for men who see your strength as either a challenge to conquer or a resource to exploit. I've spent a decade studying the patterns. Here's what no one tells you. These men don't announce themselves. They don't wear warning labels. They appear supportive, intriguing, even perfect at first. But they leave destruction in their wake. Not just emotional damage, but something far more precious to a Sigma female. Wasted time and depleted energy that could have been invested in your own path. This isn't about fear. This is about precision. Recognizing patterns, making calculated decisions about who deserves access to your life. By the end of these next 20 minutes, you'll identify these men within the first conversation before they ever get close enough to disrupt your trajectory. Type 1. The controller. The first man you'll encounter is the controller. He's drawn to you precisely because of what he cannot comprehend: your self-sufficiency. Where most see strength in your independence, he sees a challenge to overcome. Your autonomy threatens his fundamental need for dominance, creating an irresistible urge to bring you under his influence. Controllers don't begin with obvious demands. They start with suggestions wrapped in concern. Text me when you get there, I worry about you. Maybe skip that solo trip, the timing isn't ideal. I'm just looking out for your best interests. These seemingly innocent statements are calculated first moves in a long-term strategy of isolation and influence. Pay attention to his reaction when you make decisions without consulting him. Even minor choices, meeting a friend for coffee, taking on a new project, will trigger disproportionate responses. He might not display anger initially, but watch for the subtle cues, the tightening around his eyes, the momentary tension in his jaw, the immediate questions designed to make you justify your independence. These micro-expressions reveal his true intention, not partnership, but ownership. The controller's most insidious technique is his ability to reframe your independence as selfishness. "We're supposed to be a team" becomes his mantra when you pursue individual goals. He'll create emergencies that require your immediate attention whenever you've planned time for yourself. Each boundary you establish becomes evidence of your emotional unavailability rather than healthy self-preservation. Most dangerously, he'll gradually isolate you from anyone who reinforces your autonomy, claiming they're negative influences or don't understand our relationship. For the Sigma female, a relationship with a controller isn't just uncomfortable, it's existentially threatening. Your value system is built on self-reliance and intentional solitude. His is built on dominance and codependency. There is no compromise to be found, only slow erosion of your identity. Remember, genuine respect looks like admiration for your independence, not persistent attempts to undermine it. Type 2. The validation seeker. The validation seeker approaches relationships as performances rather than connections. He isn't interested in who you are. He's fixated on how being associated with you makes him appear to others. You'll first notice his excessive documentation of your time together. Every dinner becomes a photo opportunity. Every achievement of yours becomes content for his social media. He introduces you to others by listing your accomplishments or commenting on your appearance, as though reciting your resume rather than presenting a human being he cares for. What makes the validation seeker particularly dangerous for Sigma females is the false sense of alignment he creates early on. He studies you carefully, identifying what you value, then mirrors those priorities with uncanny precision. He knows you're not impressed by conventional displays, so he adapts, claiming to appreciate your depth, your disinterest in superficial validation, your independence. Yet, there's always a disconnect between his words and actions. He publicly praises your self-sufficiency while privately needing constant reassurance about his place in your life. The most telling behavior emerges when you're in social situations together. Watch how his attentiveness increases proportionally to the size of the audience. In private, he's distracted, checking his phone, half listening to your thoughts. In public, he's attentive, physically demonstrative, hanging on your every word. This isn't evolution of comfort, it's calculation. He performs the role of the devoted partner when there are witnesses to his performance. When alone, the script no longer serves his purpose. For a Sigma female who values authenticity above all, this creates a particular kind of exhaustion. The constant awareness that you're being used as a character in someone else's narrative rather than respected as the author of your own. Over time, you'll feel pressure to maintain the image he's created around your relationship, sacrificing your natural inclination for privacy and genuine connection. Remember that real compatibility exists when someone values your company, even when no one else is watching. Type 3. The energy vampire. The energy vampire operates on a fundamental deficiency. He lacks an internal source of motivation and purpose. Rather than developing his own, he attaches himself to yours. Initially, his interest in your pursuit seems flattering. He asks detailed questions about your work, your passions, your goals. He expresses admiration for your drive. This attention feels like appreciation, but it serves a different function: reconnaissance. He's identifying your sources of energy to determine how he can tap into them. You'll begin to notice a pattern in his personal history. Past relationships ended when partners became too negative or unsupportive. Previous jobs were abandoned because employers didn't recognize his potential. Projects were left unfinished because of circumstances beyond his control. Each narrative positions him as the victim rather than the common denominator. These aren't merely excuses, they're previews of how he'll eventually explain his parasitic attachment to your momentum. The energy vampire's most revealing characteristic is the aftermath of your interactions. After spending time together, you feel inexplicably drained, while he appears energized. Your enthusiasm for previously exciting projects diminishes after discussing them with him. This energy transfer isn't coincidental. It's the core mechanism of the relationship. He positions himself as a sounding board for your ideas, offering just enough feedback to justify his presence, while absorbing your creative and emotional energy without reciprocation. As your relationship progresses, he'll begin subtly undermining your focus. "You work too hard" becomes his refrain, not out of concern for your well-being, but because your dedication highlights his lack thereof. He'll create dramas that require your immediate attention, particularly when you're focused on important work. These aren't conscious sabotage tactics, but unconscious attempts to bring you down to his level of inertia, where he can compete more effectively for resources. For a Sigma female who carefully guards her energy and maintains precise focus on her goals, the energy vampire isn't just annoying, he's an existential threat to your way of being. Type 4. The competitor. The competitor enters relationships with a fundamentally adversarial mindset. Where healthy partners see your success as a shared victory, he experiences it as a personal defeat. His need to dominate every interaction stems from deep insecurity, but manifests as relentless one-upmanship. You'll first notice this pattern in casual conversations. Share an anecdote about running 3 miles. He ran 5 last week with an injury. Mention a work accomplishment. He's already achieved something similar but under more challenging circumstances. These aren't natural exchanges of experiences. They're calculated reassertions of dominance. What makes the competitor particularly toxic for Sigma females is the way he specifically targets areas where you excel. Your zones of competence become his battlegrounds. Unlike the controller who wants to limit your autonomy, the competitor wants to defeat you within it. He'll insert himself into your professional spaces, your hobbies, even your intellectual interests, not from genuine shared passion, but from the need to establish superiority. Watch for how quickly conversations transform into debates, where he must emerge victorious, regardless of the topic's significance. The competitor employs multiple strategies to maintain his perceived advantage. When direct competition fails, he'll resort to subtler tactics, dismissing your accomplishments as lucky breaks, attributing your success to connections rather than competence, or shifting criteria mid-conversation to areas where he feels more secure. Most tellingly, he responds to your good news with either immediate redirection to his own achievements or subtle undermining questions. Was there much competition for that position? Is that industry still relevant? These aren't clarifying questions. They're attempts to diminish what you've earned. Over time, you'll find yourself withholding news of your achievements, minimizing your successes, or excessively qualifying your accomplishments when speaking with him. This self-diminishment isn't coincidental. It's the exact purpose of his behavior. For a Sigma female who already practices restraint in broadcasting her victories, this creates a particularly suffocating dynamic where your natural tendency toward privacy becomes weaponized against your sense of self-worth. Remember that a secure partner celebrates your wins without feeling threatened by them, because your success isn't a subtraction from their own value. Type 5. The Savior Complex. The man with the savior complex approaches relationships through a distorted lens. He doesn't see you as you are, a self-sufficient, complete individual who chooses connection rather than needing it. Instead, he perceives your independence as evidence of past wounds, your self-reliance as a defense mechanism, your contentment with solitude as fear of vulnerability. This fundamental misreading of your nature isn't accidental. It's necessary for his self-concept. He requires someone to rescue in order to feel valuable. The early stages of involvement with the Savior appear surprisingly supportive. He listens attentively to your past experiences, often focusing disproportionately on challenges you've overcome. He offers help before you've requested it. He expresses admiration for your strength, while simultaneously suggesting you don't need to be strong around him. Pay close attention to his language. You can let your guard down with me. You don't have to handle everything alone anymore. I can tell you've been hurt before. These statements reveal his underlying assumption, that your independence is a burden you're carrying rather than a choice you're making. The relationship's power dynamic shifts noticeably when you solve problems without his intervention. What should be a neutral event, you handling your own challenges, triggers a disproportionate response. He may become deflated, withdrawn, or subtly critical of your solution. His questions turn probing, searching for flaws in your approach that would justify his involvement. Did you consider this alternative? Are you sure that's the best way? These aren't collaborative inquiries. They're attempts to establish his necessary role in your narrative. As the relationship progresses, the Savior becomes increasingly frustrated by your continued self-sufficiency. What he interpreted as a temporary state that his presence would cure reveals itself as your natural mode of operation. This realization threatens his core identity as the essential helper in your life. His assistance becomes more insistent, his boundaries less respected, his support more suffocating. For a Sigma female whose identity is built on self-determination and emotional self-regulation, this dynamic isn't merely annoying. It's a fundamental denial of who you are. A healthy partner accepts your self-sufficiency as a feature, not a problem to solve. Type 6. The Chameleon. The chameleon presents the most deceptive alignment of all the types you'll encounter. In early interactions, he appears to be your perfect counterpart, sharing your interests, echoing your values, mirroring your communication style with uncanny precision. This isn't coincidence or remarkable compatibility. It's calculated adaptation. The chameleon lacks a stable core identity, so he becomes whatever he believes will secure your attachment. This mirroring creates instant rapport and a false sense of recognition. Finally, someone who truly understands you. What distinguishes authentic shared interests from strategic mirroring is depth of engagement. The chameleon claims to share your passions, but demonstrates only surface-level knowledge. He adopts your viewpoints, but can't independently expand on them. When discussing topics you care about, he often repeats your own insights back to you with slight rephrasing, creating the illusion of intellectual connection without the substance. Most revealing is his response to disagreement. Rather than engaging in healthy debate, he quickly abandons his position and aligns with yours, prioritizing harmony over authentic exchange. The chameleon's history contains the clearest warning signs. His past relationships span wildly different types of partners. His former interests bear little resemblance to his current ones. His social circles have completely transformed multiple times. These aren't signs of healthy growth. They're evidence of his pattern of complete reinvention to match significant others. When you inquire about his past, watch for vague answers or narratives that seem improbably aligned with your own experiences. The chameleon rewrites his history to strengthen your perceived connection. For the Sigma female, whose life is characterized by careful curation of relationships and authentic self-expression, the chameleon creates a unique danger. Your typical disinterest in social validation makes you less practiced at detecting social manipulation. You take people at face value because you present yourself genuinely. Over time, as the chameleon struggles to maintain his performance, inconsistencies emerge. Opinions expressed with others contradict those shared with you. Interests fade when they require genuine engagement. Most disturbingly, his personality shifts subtly in different social contexts, revealing there is no true version, only adaptations designed for specific audiences. Type 7. The Missionary. The missionary approaches relationships with absolute certainty about how people should live, think, and behave. Unlike the controller who seeks dominance for its own sake, the missionary genuinely believes he's improving your life by redirecting it. He doesn't see your independence as a quality to be admired. He interprets it as evidence of your incomplete evolution toward his superior understanding. This conviction makes him particularly dangerous, as his attempts to reshape you come disguised as genuine concern for your well-being. In early interactions, the missionary expresses fascination with your perspective, but this interest serves a specific purpose: reconnaissance. He's identifying the areas where your thinking differs from his, cataloging what he'll need to correct over time. Pay attention to subtle qualifiers in his language. That's an interesting way to look at it, rather than genuine engagement with your viewpoint. I used to think something similar until I realized. Positioning his current belief as the evolved conclusion you haven't yet reached. These aren't exchanges of ideas. They're patient setups for eventual conversion. The missionary's most telling behavior is his persistent introduction of people who share his worldview. These aren't casual social connections. They're carefully selected examples meant to demonstrate the superiority of his approach to life. You should meet my friend Sarah. She used to be focused solely on her career too, but now she's found such balance. These introductions serve as living testimonials to the transformation he intends for you. Similarly, he shares articles, books, and resources that align with his perspective, not to expand your thinking, but to gradually replace it. As your relationship develops, his initially subtle suggestions become more explicit expectations. Your independence is reframed as immaturity that you'll outgrow. Your priorities are described as a phase rather than legitimate choices. Most telling is his vision of your shared future, which requires significant changes from you while his path remains unaltered. For a Sigma female who has intentionally constructed her life according to her own internal compass, the missionary doesn't offer partnership. He offers erasure. His love is conditional on your eventual transformation into someone who validates his worldview rather than challenges it. These 7 men, the controller, the validation seeker, the energy vampire, the competitor, the savior, the chameleon, and the missionary, aren't pursuing a relationship with you. They're pursuing a relationship with what you represent or what they can extract from you. The controller wants your submission. The validation seeker wants your status. The energy vampire wants your vitality. The competitor wants to defeat you. The savior wants your dependence. The chameleon wants your identity. The missionary wants your conversion. None want you as you actually are. This recognition isn't about cultivating cynicism or isolation. There are men who possess their own internal compass, who don't need to control, exploit, compete with, rescue, imitate, or convert you. Men who find your independence complementary rather than threatening. Men who have done the internal work necessary to bring wholeness to a relationship rather than seeking someone to complete them. These connections exist, but finding them requires discernment that only comes from recognizing what they are not. The most valuable skill you can develop is the ability to observe patterns rather than promises. Anyone can say the right things, especially to a Sigma female whose approval carries particular weight precisely because it's rarely given. But behaviors reveal underlying motivations that words can disguise. Pay attention to how someone responds when you establish boundaries, pursue individual interests, achieve success, solve problems independently, express differing opinions, or refuse to conform to expectations. These moments of friction don't reflect compatibility issues to overcome. They reveal fundamental orientations toward your autonomy. Remember that your tendency toward solitude isn't a deficit to be corrected. It's a preference to be respected. Your independence isn't a wall to be broken down. It's a strength to be admired. For the Sigma female, the question isn't whether you're willing to compromise to accommodate a partner. The question is whether that partner recognizes that your uncompromised self is exactly what they should value most. Until next time, protect your energy, guard your path, and remember, it's better to be complete alone than incomplete together. If you found value in this analysis, subscribe for more insights on navigating relationships as a Sigma female. Share your experiences in the comments. What patterns have you recognized in relationships that proved incompatible with your nature? For deeper exploration of these topics, check the description for recommended reading on maintaining independence while building meaningful connections. Thank you for your time and attention.